So, um, recently on the internet, it's all over. Like in the last couple of days, you've heard about O.J. Simpson. Um, People are coming out who are on the jury, who were working on the case. Judges, even the Kardashians are coming out talking about what they knew, and it seems like everybody knew, even his closest friends, that he was guilty. The whole world knew, but the jury, the video footage that I have seen of them being interviewed, even recently, has indicated that there was a motive for the O.J. Simpson jurors to acquit him. So they say, and that motive had to do with the racial tension that had been the fallout of an incident that had to do with Rodney King. Do you remember that?
I do. I remember it exactly.
Can you just remind me of what the Rodney King thing was? Because I do remember it, but you do in a better detail. So explain that for people who don't know.
Rodney King was the well, I'm not going to say young man, but he was the man who was beaten by LA police that basically caused the riots. I think that they started rioting after he was beat. And that's where the incident where they dragged the trucker out the truck and beat him half to death. Um, do I feel like my situation is somewhat closely related to it? Yes, and that the fact that if you know anything about Louisville, Kentucky, you know that we just had the Breonna Taylor incident here, and that is where a number of cops fabricated a false search warrant to basically go after this girl who they felt like she was tied to her ex drug dealing boyfriend, and that in the same token they were running around looking for where he kept his cash. So one thing that we've had going on here in Louisville is there's been a few police officers that have been going around robbing drug dealers. So they were basically there looking for her boyfriend's money, and he was she hadn't had any contact with him like they had made it out. They made it out like they had fabricated in the warrant that they had talked to the postmaster and that the postmaster had verified that there were packages being received there. That was all false. And subsequently, none of the officers involved ever received any type of charges for what they did or stood charges. The one and only officer that was standing trial for this Brent Hankins here in Louisville, they just found a mistrial. So,
Oh, okay, so because of that corruption that happened, there was a fallout, and that thing, if I remember correctly, was connected to the whole BLM movement during COVID.
yes,
That was
yes,
one of the
yes,
instances that was related to the BLM uprising. Okay.
yes.
Now, so your community got some very negative press at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So just I'm making a connection here. So the Rodney King incident created a lot of racial tension and some uprising at that time. That was in the early 90s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then around that same time, OJ went on trial for murdering his wife and the random person that was coming to her house to return something. What was his name? Ron Goldman. Okay,
Yes.
so that trial went on forever and a day, and that he got acquitted. Um, and it wasn't just because he had excellent attorneys, because that helps, because he has a lot of money and can afford that, but it was also because, according to the jurors, they wanted to not have an incident with another uprising of the black community, and they thought that is what would happen. This is what the jurors are saying now. In their hearts, they knew that he was guilty, but they just couldn't have it come back that way because it would have caused too much trouble. Now, do you think that something similar was influencing the corruption in your case?
Most definitely, I do. When you have a mayor that is on scene, and just so happens this mayor is an African American lady, um, who's connected to very high profile people in this county, yes, that decision can be made easily because all she's got to do is reach out to one of her friends who just so happens to be a executive judge, county judge, and to say, "Hey, we need this to go that way.
Hmm.
We need this. We don't need no charges pressed on them girls." And that I feel like basically they used my son as a sacrifice for the Breonna Taylor incident.
Yep.
That's how I feel.
Hmm.
And it's not just my son, but
Hmm.
there's several cases in here to where it's black on white crime here in Louisville, and the killers just walk free. They're either let out of the jail or they're found not guilty on any of these charges. And I have some good friends of mine that have they lost their son, and all their son had did was take them out to dinner after buying a brand new truck, wanted to celebrate with his family, and was at the Olive Garden here in Louisville, Kentucky. And they had their nephew with them, and he was running around just being a child, and he accidentally bumped into this guy who had had issues with the bartender earlier on that day and was coming back to start trouble. But when this little kid bumped into him, he pushed him down. So of course the family is going to step up and be like, "Hey, hey, hey, hey," and all this man did was step up in front of him and put his arms out to keep from hitting anybody, and the guy shot him, and they claimed it was self-defense. Well, they laid that case over for 5 years. For 5 years, the case had been laid over. So how do you expect to come back to a witness after 5 years and expect to get an exact testimony out of them? That's the type of stuff that they're doing here in Jefferson County. And I'm sure they're doing it all across the country because that's how you get murderers off.
Because
You lay their case over.
the police can't do their job, and certainly good people, even though some states allow us to carry guns, we don't dare use them, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
We know we're going to get in trouble if we use them. The good people, if the good people, I don't care what color you are, criminals get away with murder. Good people can't defend themselves because of everybody's afraid to defend yourselves, even verbally. There's no freedom of speech. We've lost all of our rights. The Bill of Rights is null and void anymore. And so things aren't going to work right because we don't have any constitutional law, for goodness sake.
Well, when you have botched self-defense laws like we have here in Kentucky, um, all our self-defense laws here in Kentucky, all they do is escalate people to kill other people. It
Mm-hmm.
does one thing about people here in Kentucky we brag about is we don't have to run, and the only thing that a person basically needs to tell you to get away with self-defense is that I thought my life was in danger. I
Oh,
was in fear. I was in fear for my life, and they'll be able to get away with self-defense.
okay. Well,
And
what about the police? Why can't they even use their guns to stop criminals? What they get in trouble now?
well, I mean, a good part of our crime and you know things that go down happen here in the West End of our community. The West End in our community is predominantly a black community. So now the police, they're not police won't even respond to anything here in Louisville unless it's has anything to do with violence. If you get into a wreck, it's we're one of those what is it no fault state. So you basically just hope that that person is going to give you their insurance and everything, and it's not the police coming there to mediate it.
Hmm.
Since the Breonna Taylor incident, I mean, Louisville has spiraled out of control. I mean, our homicides are up, violent crime is up, everything is up, and the police are basically have a collar on them. And I don't blame these police officers because if here I am doing my job and now I have all these protesters outside of my house because I did my job and kept myself safe and came home at night. Now I have all these protesters that see things one way instead of the way it is should be. Just like with this case up in Chicago where the young man was shot in his car. Well, do you think if that young man wouldn't have fired those shots at him, you think those cops would have still shot it 91 times? No, they wouldn't have. But that man knew he had that firearm in the car. He was out on bond from a previous firearm charge and did not want to go back to prison, didn't want to go to jail. So he fired those shots on the cop.
So everyone's, nobody's afraid of cops, but
Um,
that's the problem. Nobody is obeying the law. Nobody's even, they know they can get away with things. The police have no authority anymore. But anyhow, but you're talking, it sounds like, if I want to sum up what you just said, like there's a lot of racial tension still in your community, and
exactly.
it will cross the United States, but it sounds like especially your community because of that incident. And
Yeah, I mean, the Breonna Taylor incident was nationwide. I mean, we had riots here in Louisville for the longest.
but your son wasn't a racist, was he?
No, no,
No.
by no means. One thing you're not going to pick up from this video is that my biological father is a black man, and that two of TJ's grandfathers were African American, and the girl that he had pregnant was an African American little girl.
Mhm.
So he's not racist.
He wasn't racist. So what was his motivation for trying to kill them? I mean, according
there
to
was
them.
uh I don't know. I mean, he really didn't have the only motivation he had was to protect my wife,
Yeah.
and
But
like I said,
they had
just
no
doing what
reason to believe that he would want, the police had no reason to believe, because he has no criminal record and he's not a racist and he's partially black and he is has his
unarmed.
boyfriend. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he's unarmed.
he's unarmed. There is no motive for him to, for anybody to think that he is going to hurt these women. But yet,
Exactly.
that's their claim, that they feared for their life.
Well,
And
if you watch the video, when he came back in the second time, if he was trying to hurt her, he would have just came in there swinging and dropped her. He
mhm.
wasn't. He was just trying to get the gun away from her and her out of the building. Even with the wife that, she forced her way inside that shed after him. I mean, if he wanted to, he could have wrapped her up in there and started beating the crap. But he wasn't. He was just trying to keep her at bay.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, if you look in the video, he kind of goes back like this, like to say, "Hey, it's not me, it's her."
Mhm.
And at the time he is shot, there was no reason that this woman should have been in fear for her life, because if you look at it, there were people on both sides splitting them up. And before they could even split him up, she just hurried up and put that gun to his rib cage. I mean, shot him so close that she basically cauterized the wound almost, and continued to threaten and harass my wife after they had just created this whole incident.
And your son, tell me about him. He has no violent tendencies. He has
No, I
no
mean,
violent history. Tell me about your son.
man,
What kind of personality does he have?
TJ was the most loving, caringest person. I mean, he was in all aspects of our family. He was the light. He's always there for you. Even being his father, he's always there for me. Whatever I needed him, he was always there. He loved to run cross country. That was his thing. He ran all 4 years in high school in cross country. He had a full ride scholarship for cross country. Um, he was one of the COVID babies, so he didn't get to graduate, like most kids do because of COVID.
Oh,
But and then that really screwed up his college too, because the meets that he was going to, they were getting canceled. So he decided to take a break. And in between that break, my wife, had been at this clinic for a number of years. And one of the doctors, actually the doctor on the phone with 911, made up a job for him, just made up a job for him and said, "Hey, you think TJ would like to do this?" And I'm going to tell you, I didn't think we would, I didn't think he was going to take to it at all. You asked my wife, and she would have hurried up and told you no, it probably wouldn't have worked out, but it did. And that job forced him to come out of his shell. He was a shy person, but being in that job, it forces him to talk with customers and whatnot. And you could just see him blossoming into a man. And I mean, he loved that place. I mean, he worked 7 days a week for no reason. The day he was shot, he was there on his day off. He wasn't even supposed to be there. but that's how obligated he felt to this clinic. I could hardly ever get him to sit home and stay home with me. I'd be like, hey, sit home and stay home with your dad, and hang out with me. No, I'm gonna go into work for a little bit. And he knew he had this baby coming, so he was just trying to, work as much as he could and get ready for this baby that he had on the way.
And so his
That
girlfriend was pregnant at the time that he was murdered. And how did
Yes, she was
she
pregnant.
respond? How did, like, what happened to her after that? Can you tell me, like, what was the fallout for her?
I mean, it broke her heart. You know, I mean, she'll probably never ever find a man that loved her as much as he did, and she probably realized that. And it just took her down a really deep dark place, and it was. I mean, it's horrible for all of us, but I imagine her. I know it really hurt her. And she was sad that he wasn't able to see this childbirth with her. Then unfortunately, 2 weeks after she finally has the baby, 5 months after he's passed away, she passes away from a blood clot. A blood clot, I think, went from her leg to her heart, and it dropped her.
So, yeah, so follow-up care after you have a baby is really important, and blood clots can happen. And were you telling me that she wasn't getting, she would, was she depressed? Like she wasn't going to the doctor like she
Um,
should?
Unfortunately, kids are kids. That's why they call them kids. And with her being a young mom, she's not realizing that this aftercare is important, and that a lot of African American women do have complications after their pregnancies and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And the doctors had thought that she had this blood clot before, but she wouldn't let them do the X-rays that she needed because she was pregnant, and I guess the radiation or something could have
Mm-hmm.
could have hurt the baby.
Oh, okay.
So whenever she has the baby, she never went back to get any follow-up care, because I guess from where she had been pregnant so long. And you got to think, this little girl's 18 years old, been pregnant this whole time, while all her friends are out there having fun. She wanted to hit the streets, and we were perfectly fine with that, you know. And she just so happened was on her way out to St. Louis, and was in, I think, Farmersville, Illinois, at a truck stop off Highway 57. And I would imagine, from everything that I've been told, if you were to have a blood clot, you're going to start feeling like maybe lightheaded and dizzy. And that's from where, your blood, your heart's not pumping any blood. And I imagine she just passed right out, not knowing that
Where
that's what
was
it
the
was.
baby? Where was the baby at the time that that happened?
Thank God the baby was with us. We are the ones who actually brought the baby home, which was a sad, bittersweet day. I remember walking out of that hospital carrying a baby, and just sitting there thinking, like, how wrong this is, that this should have been TJ, and how happy I could only imagine a shit-eating grin on his face walking out of the hospital with that baby. I mean,
So
that's all he was looking.
you have the baby now.
Yes, we've had the baby ever since she was born.
Okay. Okay.
She's now 6 months old.
And what she's the light of your life, right?
She is. I mean, with everything that we've experienced, I mean, you can't expect a person to be happy,
No.
and my son was more than just my son. He was my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
We spent more time together than anybody. I mean, we were always together. And it just really sucks that, just the way the whole everything played out. you know but I forgot where I was going at with that,
You
but
haven't been able to get any help. You've been through a couple attorneys. They either scam you for money or they side with the opposing counsel. It's not been, I know how that goes. Happened to me too. If people don't understand that attorneys are like, just to start out for a small trial, like It's going to be like one day $10,000, for you to actually go after these
I
people.
paid $10,000 just for a lawyer for a criminal lawyer to be a mediator for the prosecutor and me, and to schedule these meetings with the prosecutor and to basically show, our side of the evidence, to say, hey, you got this case wrong. Lawyer charged me 10 grand for that.
But nothing ever happened. She's still a free woman. And
And
so your goal, like, I remember what you said to me about, like, I don't know if it's your only goal. It's just, you want justice for the grandbaby. Explain that. Like, you want her to know what TJ was like, and he was not a murderer.
well, unfortunately, you know, every news station was here in Louisville was weaponized against us. And how do I know they were weaponized against us? Because every major news station here in Louisville, instead of showing the video, they cherry picked it and chopped it up into, little sequences here and there, instead of letting the video play all the way out. Just like the grand jury, um, the news never played the whole video. The news only showed the inside, and even us, we were told that none of this was ever caught on. None of the incident was caught on camera, and that's why it was such a you know a hard case to really deal with. But then once we received that original footage from the animal clinic, we seen that the whole incident was caught on camera. It's caught on two separate cameras, where one camera doesn't catch, this other camera will
Mm-hmm.
catch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I saw, I saw that.
even the news stations, like one news station let our son's killers interviewed both of them and let them get on there and just say whatever they wanted to say. The one woman who claimed she was on the ground and beaten, she got on there, and that's all you hear. They got her blacked out, and that's all you hear her say is, all I felt was the pressure from the punches, and the scratches from the rake, and that he choked me and that I was unconscious. Well, if you watch that video, you're
Yeah.
clearly seeing that she was never unconscious. Never did he throw one punch or choke anyone.
So
He
this is
was
a
just,
whole narcissistic narrative that everybody got on board with to save face for the community, and then the press was supposed to support the narrative they were going to go with.
and
Everybody's got to be on board.
that's not even the worst part about it. The worst
Okay.
part about it is when she went to TikTok bragging about this. I mean, if you if you go and look up those news interviews and look at those comments, that is a bunch of racist ass comments just aimed towards us. My son, people saying the most horriblest thing that they can say about my son. And even if what was I getting at?
Defamation campaign against your whole family.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was, because, like I said, they let these women get on there and write their own narrative that can't even be backed up by video footage. And that's my whole problem with this, is that, in the beginning, I was willing to accept this, whether my son was right or wrong. You have to, if he was in the wrong, I can't sit there and be an advocate for him and say that he was just an innocent creature when he wasn't. But after we reviewed that video footage, and my wife being the first one to do it, she's a way stronger than I am at that time. She told me straight up, he was trying to retreat. He was trying to get inside that storage closet, and they ran him down. So how are you going to run somebody down, attack them, and then claim self-defense? I mean, it's just, this case had to be somebody political had to put their foot in this case in order for this narrative to get tainted like that. For a detective to miss it, I mean, all the detective had to do is read the narratives and then watch the video. One thing that we learned is that the shooter was released before they even had the original video footage to prove that it wasn't self-defense. She
Yeah.
was released. She was only held for an hour and was released.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, that's it baffles me. Like, how does that happen? You
Mm-hmm.
know, it happens when you have people on that have political power abusing their power.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that they did, they had a niece that was with them the whole time, and you could see her standing inside the clinic. Um, she's on body
Now, okay,
cam,
so
and
the orange lady and her
yeah,
wife had a
they
niece that was in the clinic with them that day.
yeah, she was
Okay.
18 years old, and I got her on body cam footage, and she doesn't know nothing. She didn't see nothing. All she heard was a loud pop and seen him on the ground.
Okay, let me
Well,
just clarify that. Just hold on for just a second. You're
mhm,
saying that she talked to police that day and it's on body cam. I know nothing. I saw nothing. I wasn't yet in a position to see exactly what happened, so she knew nothing, right?
right.
That's what she said.
So then she comes back 3 days later, only to add to her statement that after the incident happened, that the staff members began to yell racial slurs,
Oh.
and she had to distance herself. Now, what's funny about that is that there were three other African American people there that never once said anything about that. So, our new prosecutor, what had happened is right before TJ passed away, our Jefferson County prosecutor, Tom Wine, he also passed away from natural causes. So Andy Bashir, our governor, appoints this Jarena Weathers as our new Jefferson County attorney, which is all three things that the women who shot my son was: African American, woman, and LGBTQ. Now you bring this evidence in front of her, and where she sees that this lady was a victim and that they were yelling racial slurs at
Mhm.
her, and that all she was trying to do was get her dog. Who do you think she's going to side with?
Exactly.
And
Now,
that's what she did. She put her own personal preferences and
what 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 baffles me is that your wife is even able to like exist right now. I mean, how did she even process this? How, like, she's there and she sees this whole thing and
I mean, she's probably still processing this. I mean, I, I can tell, because she's my wife and I'm around her all the time. I can tell when it's bothering her, and it definitely bothers her. I mean, one thing that worries me is my 16-year-old son, who was
yeah,
also there.
oh my God.
As Yeah, if you look in the video, right when she spits in his face, he's sitting at the door watching this. So that bothers me because, like, now what does my son think about the law? You know, now I have to tell him, now I have to put it in his head that, hey, not everybody are bad characters, that I'm sure somewhere down the road there are good prosecutors and good police officers in America. But for him to be there at that incident, witness it, and then watch the lady who shot and killed his brother just walk free, I mean, that really, it bothers me. It bothers me that he had to deal with that, and then to have to go to school. All this was all over the news. So then have to go to school and deal with all the kids snickering behind your back, even the teachers. That's who I feel for. That's why I'm not giving up in this fight, is because of my family. I literally have to sit here and watch what they go through, you
You
know.
want justice for your family and also your great, especially your granddaughter, because you don't want her to grow up and see all this stuff and then not know that
Three,
her dad was a hero. Not
yeah,
that
and
it
that's my
wasn't
biggest
self-defense.
fear. Yeah, and that's my biggest fear, is that, we can grow up and we can tell her dad's a hero all we want. But then what happens when she goes back to these news stations and YouTube, interviews and whatnot, and she sees, that they labeled him the aggressor, and that she comes to us and it's like, you lied and told me my dad was this good person when he was sitting there beating this woman. That's what I'm challenged with,
So you
and
want
that,
justice, you want justice for her,
well, I
especially
want not just
everybody.
her. I mean, my wife, my son, the other coworkers that were there. Three of those, three of those women were seriously traumatized by this, are in counseling, all that. You know, my wife lost her job, lost her career over this, you know, and then not only did she lose her career, we had to deal with the news stations sitting there saying, you know, collaborating with the killer, saying that my wife and 16-year-old son are out there cleaning evidence up as they're compressioning him. Never happened. Never happened.
As a
You
mother,
know,
you wouldn't leave your child's side. It wouldn't even occur to you to clean anything up. You would hold his hand and make sure that he's okay. You would not think of anything else.
but my thing is, what happens to when my wife does decide to go back to work, you know, and decides to apply to another veterinarian clinic, and
How'd she
then
lose
that
her
vet,
job?
well, she tried to go back,
Oh,
and
it's
when
too
she,
traumatic. Too traumatic.
well, well, the doctors there, instead of dealing with the angry customers themselves, they will throw the vet techs underneath the bus so they don't get the brunt of it all,
Oh,
you know. So when my wife went back it was probably months, maybe a couple months later, she tried to go back, and same thing, an aggressive customer. This one with a 16-year-old daughter, and the 16-year-old daughter, as my wife is walking through the hallway, my wife can hear her say, "I see why people shoot y'all here." Yeah.
what is going
So,
on?
my wife, she was like, "That's it. I'm done."
Good for
And
her.
that's who the doctor wanted my wife to go down there and see. And my wife was like, "No, I'm not doing that." She said, "The last time you put me in that position, my son got shot and killed. You go deal with her."
Yes.
And then that's when all her coworkers chimed in and said, you're not putting her in that position. You're not going to do her like that."
Oh my word. No, she can't go back there.
And then my 16-year-old son, we let him stay there for a while because he wasn't working with none of the regular doctors. He has a doctor that has really took a liking to him there. She helped him helped us get him into the school we got him in, and I mean, she's been really great for him and great to him. But it was just, I was uncomfortable with him being there. You know, I've lost one son to that place, and
Yeah.
we see what happened when I lost my son. You know, they didn't even stick up for us in no way, shape, or form. That clinic never made a statement to no news, to no law enforcement, nothing saying that this incident was any different than what they put it out on the news.
So you, your wife and your son, let me just, what they're dealing with is it's multi levels. It's a regular, not a regular, but an
It's grief,
it's
it's
an
trauma.
extraordinary grief. Okay, yeah, extraordinary grief because of the way he was killed. It's the natural process that we go through of grief, but at an extraordinary level. There's that. Okay. Secondly, they have PTSD. That's hands down. PTSD, trauma, brain. That's actual brain damage that happens. And then on top of that, I'm sure you know about litigation abuse syndrome, right? I don't know if
Yeah,
you've heard about that. Like the DSM, with the psychologists, when they diagnose people, they actually have a category that's called litigation abuse now, because so many people have been victims of lawfare like this that there is a special type of PTSD that's extra hard to treat, that is from being falsely and unjustly treated in the court system, falsely accused of something, injustice happens to you, and like a lot of people that are victims of domestic violence go through it over and over again for years and years and years, this lawfare where people use the court system against them. In your case, justice was not served, and the court system was also used against you. So your wife is dealing with that too, like a just that injustice, that feeling of injustice, like all this awful stuff happened to me and nobody cares and no one's going to do anything
bas-
about it.
basically, you know, I mean, I would have thought some of these civil rights people here in Louisville that jumped on the Breonna Taylor bandwagon would have, helped us out, came to our aid, but no. Gun violence in this city, I guess they feel like it only applies to, the black community, and that, white people are entitled to be gun violence victims, or speak out about it. But you know, it, how do I feel about the police and the whole system? I have to know that those police officers are just bad eggs, and that good police officers do truly exist. And you know, I don't know how to really explain it, or the words that I'm looking for, but it's I'm definitely scared. I'm very scared because I know that our prosecutor will not do nothing. I know that if I call the police and they know my address, they know my name, what if I need help? They're not coming because of all the hell that I've gave them for doing what they did, you know? Um, I have to worry about bumping into these women again. We live in the biggest small town in America. What's going to happen when I'm out with my family and my other 16-year-old son and my granddaughter and my wife and this couple sees us, you know?
Because they
Or,
stalked you
or
for a while, right? They stalked you, even cyber
oh
stalked
my,
you.
oh my God. So after we bury my son and the grand jury made their decision, I knew what was getting ready to happen. I mean, I knew that we had targets on our back, and we did, because we were trolled for months on months after losing our son. My wife, she would get the most nastiest messages. I would get messages saying, "That's why your son's dead. You should have raised a better son. Your son's a woman beater. He's burning in hell, resting in piss." I got all those messages, all from the woman who shot my son, telling people on TikTok to come after my profile because I'm speaking out against this. So she told people to come out after me. And then she did several lives with big TikTok creators, one being T. Nathan. Tizzy even jumped in on this. And I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We had family members all the way in Virginia getting trolled for posting stuff about TJ. On TikTok, there was hundreds of people who thought that this case was crazy and that it was outrageous. And how could anybody get shot while working at a veterinarian clinic, on their day off? So you had all these tribute videos that people were making, and then they were getting trolled to where they had to take them off.
So it wasn't
Um,
enough
there
to
was a free
shoot
there
him?
was a freelance reporter. She's from Illinois, where you're at, not too far from you. Her name's Sarah Bulls. That she was trolled. She had to shut down her whole social media because she was trolled so much for reporting the truth on this matter.
Well, here's the thing. To Orange Lady, she would not be the first psychopath that's after me, and I'm not afraid of her. So go ahead and troll me, Orange Lady. That's my message to her.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm right there with you. I mean,
I wrote 2 books about the last psychopath. Just keep that in mind, Orange Lady. So, um, anything else you want to tell me, Trent, before we go?
um, the whole point of this is trying to get our story out there,
Mhm.
because with all the mainstream media here in Louisville going against us, they basically got us in a bubble. So, I'm just trying to get our story out there and hope that it attracts the right person that can come help us. Do I think this was fair in any way, shape, or form? No, this was not fair in any way, shape, or form. Do I think and do I know that they broke laws to enforce other laws? Yes, they did. Um, you know, you can't cherry pick your evidence and for a grand jury to exonerate one person and not do the same for the other person. My son had equal rights in that situation. And that they gave the woman that murdered my son, they treated her better than they treated us after we had just lost our
Mhm.
son.
Yeah.
When we were coming into that meeting with the Jefferson County prosecutors, we thought we were getting ready to get consoled about how victims' rights work and how the whole um, process works. No, we didn't get any of that. They were clearly against him, and that the only reason they were taking us to a grand jury was to exonerate the woman that shot and killed my son. My biggest problem with that is that, if I go out and kill somebody, you think they're going to let me write my own narrative? You think
No.
they're going to be like, let me be like, hold up real quick. Let me think of a good story to tell you real quick why I just shot this person. No, they're
Yeah.
not. But they let her basically write a whole narrative that
Mm-hmm.
cannot be backed up by video footage
Mm-mm.
or corroborated by any of the other staff
Not
members
even a
that were
little
there at
bit.
Shively.
Not even a
No,
little
no,
bit.
no. It's not even close. So it still baffles me of like how we got here. How did it get this far? you know so we're just asking for justice to be served. I'm not asking for no special treatment
Mm-mm.
or anything like that. We're just asking Jefferson County prosecutors and anybody else involved in this case, do your job. Give us
Mhm.
the same treatment, give us the fair treatment that we deserve. And that's basically
So
all we're asking.
what I was thinking, I'm a teacher. This came to my mind the other day when I was thinking about your story. And everybody is all up in arms about, school shootings and mass shootings and people just walking in random places and shooting the place up. And they're like, well, how do we stop this? And they keep, gun laws, gun laws, gun laws, gun laws. Yeah, I know we need gun laws. Of course we do. But here's my thought on the matter. As a teacher, it seems to me that if I had a gun in my drawer and someone came in to shoot my class and that gun was locked up in my drawer and I was able to get it out and shoot the person before they shot everybody else, um, then that would take care of the problem. And that doesn't occur to anybody to do that. And so the fact that your son was trying to avoid a mass shooting and he got in trouble for it, our society and their thinking is completely flipped. And it's like,
If
what
you
is
look at it,
wrong?
all right, if you look at it like this, okay, had TJ been a young African American man and the woman that shot him would have been a white woman, you think she would have? You think they would have let her off? No, they would have crucified her.
Hmm. And so
Yeah,
your son tried to save the day, and you guys are being defamed over it. Oh my goodness, let the man rest in peace. He was a hero.
yeah.
And I'm so sorry that this happened to you, Trent. And I don't even know like what to say other than um I can't imagine a worse pain than what you're going through, like your whole family. Like it's awful. It's
It is very awful. I mean, it's when I wake up, this is on my mind before I've even opened my eyes, and how that's even possible, I don't even know. It's like I must have been dreaming about it. But then it's like I have to lay there and I have to sit there and think about the process that my son went through. He's in an ambulance with strangers. I don't know how they're treating him. I don't know whether they're giving him adequate care or whether they really care enough to try to save his life. Then he gets into an emergency room. They got his chest ripped open, trying to massage his heart, save his life. Then once they can't do that, he's laying there, ripped open. They just discard him to the hallway and put a sheet over him and wait for the morgue to come. Then they put him in a cold box by himself. Then he's waiting for an autopsy where they've got to literally take his heart out and do all this. Then I've got to wait for the morticians to come pick him up. Then he's laying there in another, you know, cold box just by himself. I mean, that for any parent, that's a lot to take in. That
this
was my
just
seed.
this just
That was my
happened.
baby.
This just happened like last Mother's Day.
Yeah, we're getting ready to be 11 months in this month. The
So
14th will make 11 months.
this is very fresh in you know you're never going to get over this. Your wife's never going to get over this, but grief can take a long time. Um,
And grief is
and
like the one of the most horriblest things that you can go through. I mean,
yeah,
because it plays tricks on you. It forces me to analyze my whole life. If I wouldn't have went here, if I wouldn't have went there,
yeah,
would this still have happened? And it's just something that no parent should have to go through. I mean, if he was in a car wreck, I could have dealt with this way better. If I had to watch him be terminally ill and die for months, I could deal with that way better.
mhm,
But for my son to be shot while trying to protect his mother and coworkers, and then no charges pressed, and then they let the shooter come after me on social media,
mhm,
stalk me on social
mhm,
media. I mean, there's one, I was on one of my Facebook posts, I have her because I'm saying something about, what had happened in regards to that. And then you can see where she messages me, says, well, how are you so sure of what happened if you wasn't there? Like, are you that big of a narcissist? Like that shows the character that this woman had. That you just shot and killed my son. That you feel so bad about it, but the best thing you can do is go to social media and try to. It's like she was trying to get like some type of Oprah book deal or something. And then you go into the comments and all these people like, you should never had to do that, girl. I'm glad you're safe and this and that. And then you had all these other creators. She's telling people that we're harassing her and this and that. Nobody in my household said anything to her. Now, his biological mother did figure out who she was and said some things to her. But you just shot and killed her son. Of course, she's going to have some hard feelings about that. Of course, she's going to be mad. And, it could have been way worse. She could have said way worse, you know, but because of that, I got trolled. I got harassed. My wife, the police did not redact my wife's phone number. So they got a hold of my wife's phone number, and my wife's phone number had to be changed. They did not redact my minor son name out of the investigation. So the shooter got a hold of the witness list, and she posted all the names online so all her trolls could come after him. She had people calling up to the clinic um, once a day, two or three times a day, saying, "Good, that's why your coworker's dead. She should have shot all y'all." That's the aftermath of what we had to deal with. We didn't just to get to go on and go on about our normal lives. We were harassed. My wife not only lost her job, my 16-year-old son lost his job. I lost my job, wasn't able to go back. And I had a really good job, and it's over. Now we're just doing everything we can to barely keep afloat, and then keep in mind that now we have a newborn in the equation. So, I mean, diapers and wipes and all that, we have that's coming out of our pocket. I mean,
and
we
so
don't get any.
people say, well, I remember somebody when I was going through my court thing saying, talking to the state's attorney and going, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, well, you can sue him for defamation. You know how much that costs?
Yeah.
Tell everyone how much that would cost you.
I mean, and it's like I could sue these women. I could sue these women for wrongful death, but they don't have anything.
Yeah,
A jury could award me $20 million, and all it'll be is a piece of paper.
yeah,
They don't have anything to go after.
yeah,
And then with the sovereign immunity and all that, you can't go after governor officials, government officials.
right.
And how the hell that even got passed? That tells you right there that the people that are making these laws are lawyers, and what the lawyers are doing is writing themselves out of the laws.
The lawyers are running the world right now. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
because most of your legislators are lawyers.
right, exactly. The system at its core is evil. It's just evil and corrupt. And but I believe, Trent, with all of my heart, that God is going to bring justice for you. Not because I believe that the system is going to do anything right, but I believe that um, I don't know if you're a believer, but I am, and I'm going to be praying for you. And I believe that God sent me to help you, and I believe justice is coming for you. And I
I
also,
believe that everything that was done in the light everything that was done in the dark, I feel like will come to light,
yeah,
you know, sooner or later. And if anything, this has all taught me patience. I know nothing's going to happen at the snap of my fingers. It's going to take time for things to get out there. With this prosecutor, if when in the state of Kentucky, there's no statute of limitations on a felony charge. So just because this prosecutor that we got didn't want to indict, don't mean that when she runs up for reelection and she doesn't get it, that we get the right prosecutor that we want in office, that we'll have them take it back in front of a grand jury and then get it. We
good,
will get
good
this
point.
one way or the other, because we can keep taking this back in front of a grand jury as much as we need to. We just need the people to play ball with us.
Yeah, in Illinois, there's no statute of limitation on attempted murder. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know like what your state is, but that is a good point that you bring out. Uh, but I'm going to keep praying for you. And I just want to tell you one thing, because I've heard you say that story a couple times, and this is not going to make you feel any better at all. But I want to point out that TJ is not in a box. He's safe in the arms of Jesus, and that doesn't make you feel any better, but he is. And so I don't want you to think about him being in a box anymore, okay?
Yeah. It's just, I mean, imagine your own child, going through the same process. It's just horrible. And no matter what, that's the only reality of the situation, to know that, my son's laying in the ground right now in a box, in a very expensive box and vault. I can say that, but, you know, I'd rather him be here. I
Yes, you
mean, I,
would.
I wouldn't, I wouldn't care if I had to wipe, change his diapers, do whatever I had, as long as I knew he was here alive and I could still talk with him and touch him. I could have dealt with that. But I told you we seen a medium, and the medium told us that he could have came back, but it wouldn't have been him. And when I thought about it, it made sense, because he had lost so much blood to the or oxygen to the brain, that
Yes.
he would have came back with some type of brain injury, or so.
So thank you so much for all your time. We're going to get working on this, and I appreciate you taking so much time with us.
Well, I appreciate you for for having a soft spot for me in your heart, and taking your time out of the day to do this. I mean, you didn't have to do this, and you didn't have to waste an hour of your time, talking with me. But I definitely appreciate you, and I hope everything works out for us, in the long run.
Yep, I believe God's going to do something big. And anyway, we'll keep in touch, and I'll keep you posted on where we're at. And it's no
Okay.
trouble. And the Lord put it on my heart to do this, so it's not me. It's what He told me to do. So anyway, you have a great rest of your day, and I will be talking to you soon.
All right. You do the same, and thank you very much.
Thank you.